Chair Moody, I got the notification, so I'll go ahead and throw it to you if you're ready.
We're
Okay.
live. Go ahead, fellas.
All right. All right, good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the March 16th, 2021 Graham Planning Board meeting. For this meeting, the City of Graham is convening by Zoom video conference as posted on the City of Graham's website identifying how you can publicly join. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, this meeting is being held via Zoom platform. This meeting is being recorded for the purposes of taking minutes. If anyone is having technical difficulties or connection difficulties, please contact Preston Jenkins at 336-347-8674 for support. For any items that on tonight's agenda to address the council at the meeting, please indicate that you wish to do so by using the raise hand feature in the Zoom, or if by phone, press *9 and our meeting host will notify me when you wish to speak. As a preliminary matter, I am Vice Chair Justin Moody, and I'd like to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. I'll start with Mike Benesh.
I'm here.
Tony Bailey.
Here.
Eric Chrisman.
Here.
Nate Perry.
Here.
Bobby Chin.
Here.
Chair Ward is absent. The staff participants, I'll call your name, please confirm. Nathan Page.
Present.
And Debbie Jolly.
Here.
All right, I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes from the February 16th, 2021 meeting, please.
I'll make that motion, sir.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nathan, do I need to poll this?
For the minutes, if it's unanimous, that's good enough. For the items that we pass on to City Council, we should poll it.
Yes, sir. Okay. Moving on to new business. Section A, we have RZ 2102 Cherry Industrial request by Jeffrey and Janine. I will butcher this name. I'm sorry, they're my neighbor. Eckinger for a rezoning of 5 parcels of approximately 40 acres from R18 low density residential to L1 light industrial in the vicinity of 2230 Cherry Lane. Do I need to list these GPNs?
No, sir, they're on the screen. That's good enough.
Okay. All right. At this time, Nathan, I feel I need to recuse myself. I live within walking distance of this property, and I have parents that adjoin parts of these properties. So I feel that at this time I need to recuse myself. And I believe Eric Chrisman is going to take over at this point. Do I need to mute myself, or will I be muted by you?
If you wouldn't mind muting yourself and then turning your camera off, you'll be able to follow along. And as soon as we're done with this item, they don't vote to bring you back in or anything. You're automatically back in the meeting when we do the 160D update.
Okay, Mr. Moody is no longer with us, and will return when we finish this item of business. Mr. Page, will you present this to us, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chrisman. The item before us, RZ 2103, is Cherry Industrial. It is a request to rezone the property. The property is currently the residence of the Etchingers as well as land that has been cultivated in the past. Excuse me. The parcel appears to be marketed in conjunction with the light industrial product land to the north and may be difficult to serve with residential services due to the distance from the city center.
We'll open the floor for discussion, or anybody here to present the petition from the audience. Are the Ecklingers here to speak?
They are. You ready for them to speak?
Yes, that'd be fine.
They've been unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Jeff and Jeannie Eichinger,
Hey, y'all.
Can you state your address, please?
2230 Cherry Lane, Haw River, 27258.
Okay, can you tell us what you have in store here, what we're trying to do?
Yeah, the land is for sale. We originally did want to sell it for residential, found out that we're kind of on the outskirts of the services area for fire and other services. And it would be easier to use this land for industrial, and there are several companies that have already inquired about it. This is close to the Commerce Park, and this whole area seems to be moving in that direction.
Does anyone from the board have a question? If not, we'll open this up to anybody in the audience that have a question. If you'd like to speak during this item, please indicate that you wish to do so by using the raise your hand feature on Zoom, or if by phone, press *9 to notify the host you wish to speak. We will recognize you at the appropriate time to speak. If you're having technical difficulties, please contact Preston Jenkins at 336-347-8674 to provide your comments to be read. Do we have anybody that wishes to speak?
Yes, sir. At this time, we have one Glidden Patterson. You've been unmuted. State your name and address for the record, please. Glenn, you've been allowed to talk. Press your unmute button and
Patterson, you still?
Oh, excuse me. Hi. Glenn Patterson, 885 Cheeks Lane, Graham. I'm assisting the Eichingers in marketing this property along with another commercial broker. I'm available for any questions or comments or thoughts that y'all might have from the brokering side of things.
If this is too far from city services, from the city to be connected to city services, what makes it attractive for industrial development?
Given the growth pattern in that area to the industrial parks, there is sewer in the area, and it is more financially feasible to look into having a developer extend those services for an industrial use than a residential use. We put it out on the market to some residential type folks, and one in particular took a look at it, and they just completely it just sort of blew apart because the water was too far for what their yield was going to be. Industrially, that appears to be the best route to go with this from an economic standpoint in running that service to that area.
Chair Chrisman, would you like me to provide a little more clarity there?
I was going to ask you if you would, please.
So there is sewer that's adjacent to this parcel, but it's across Back Creek. It's at the end of Backatosh Lane in the vicinity of what used to be Bakatoshi Seafood Restaurant and is now 10 Federal Storage. However, there's limited capacity on that pump station, and it would not serve something like 100 homes or a neighborhood of a size that could go here. So the developer would be responsible for installing somewhere north of a half-mile of gravity fall sewer line, which, as you may imagine, is quite expensive, especially considering that when creeks and rivers take right turns, they frequently do so because of an abundance of rocks. And in this location, there's more than one sharp right turn. As such, it's deemed that the existing pump station at the end of Bakatosh Lane is probably the most reasonable sewage location for this parcel. And the limitations would be fine to serve something like the Lidl or potentially even the UPS site, but would not work for a heavy water user. Even like an apartment complex would not go here because simply just the domestic sewer would be in excess of the capacity of that pump station.
An industrial developer would foot those costs because of the availability of the land or the availability of the access to the interstate, or what makes this attractive other than the space, 40 acres?
So something like the UPS only has a fair number of employees that may use the bathroom or whatever, but they're not all showering and bathing and washing clothes and all those sorts of things that occur at homes. And so their use is much more, it may peak a little bit during the workday, but it doesn't go on 24/7 like a home may.
Okay, so a good warehouse location. Okay, distribution center, whatever.
And also, gentlemen, this is Glenn again, that the property is being marketed with the property adjacent this on its north side.
And what property is that, sir?
Who's the owner of that, Nathan?
That's the Productland, PERDUK, that's currently zoned light industrial.
Okay.
Okay, is it that close to the land that adjoins, excuse me for a second, went it right out of my head, the record service guy, Whitfield, excuse me.
So if you can see the map, the
Yeah,
I-1
yes, sir.
that is between the interstate and the parcel in question is the Productland.
Yes,
I believe the Whitfield towing is over on Jimmy Carr, which is,
it is. I didn't know if it abutted up from the backside.
yeah, so it does not. It stops at Back Creek.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Mr. Patterson?
Mr. Passer, do you have any idea of what type industrial that would be attractive to that area?
Not in particular. I mean, given the size of the site, the growth and demand for the area, I just don't know. I mean, the topography of these pieces are a little more challenging than what's been in the other two industrial parks to the east of this. My thought with it is that you probably could look at possibly one large user and several smaller, can you put a Walmart or a Lidl on there? I don't know. That's an engineering question. There would be a lot of dirt to be moved out there given the topography. It does lend itself for several larger than typical, say around the airport industrial properties in Burlington, and larger than that, it may be 2 or 3 sitting around in a park type setting. You could possibly get enough land and use your density and do one big project. We've had some industrial folks that have shown some interest in it and looking into it. So that's tough to say.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Nathan, road frontage near Bakatosh Lane?
No,
None, all off of Cherry Lane, correct?
right. Otherwise, they'd have to build another bridge across Back Creek, and I'm not even sure that Bakatosh Lane runs all the way to the edge of Back Creek. I'm not sure that they have access to Bakatosh Lane.
I didn't think they did. I was just asking. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Page, if you'd be so kind to tell us what kind of activity could go on in the light industrial zone?
I have the development ordinance up. Let me pull that up. So light industrial is the column that says I1. It's this first one of two here.
Okay,
So it could be office space, ambulance rescue fire station, animal hospital, boutique shops, large item store, athletic fields, vehicle accessory and supply, vehicle assembly, painting, upholstering, rebuilding, reconditioning, body and fender work, vehicle body and fender repair conducted entirely within a closed building, vehicle dealer, vehicle repair shops not including body and fender work, vehicle towing services, bank savings and loan, a banquet hall, beauty shop, barber shop, nail salon, batting cages.
okay,
Billiard.
we're not talking about an asphalt plant or anything.
No, actually, an asphalt plant is expressly prohibited in this location. The asphalt plant is.
Okay,
I think that they had one, but this is the closest. The cement, concrete, lime, and plaster is heavy industrial, but not light industrial.
okay. I was looking at anything that would be really unattractive to have out there.
Yeah, that's my concern, Eric.
A junkyard, is that light industrial?
Got one of those down there.
We don't talk about that one though.
No, sir, I'm sorry. I should have said that.
Junkyards are not allowed anywhere in the city of Graham by our charter.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak from the audience?
Yes, there is one. It's just showing up as Galaxy S10e.
Okay, Mr. Galaxy, if you'd identify yourself and the name and address, please.
Kendall Isley, 2279 Cherry Lane, Hall River, 27258.
Okay, Mr. Isley.
Okay, my question is, you're going to mix up tractors and trailers in this residential area where Cherry Lane does not have a clover leaf. And so that tells me that these tractors and trailers are going to have to come by our house to service this area, which is hills and gullies and a lot of wetland. And somebody's got to have some deep pockets to make some flat land to build warehouses with. So my question is the safety and the concern of the noise that that light industrial would prohibit this residential area right here, what we've had in farm use and in a little nice neighborhood like we have. We got Walmart on the backside, which that's a industrial park. Then you got the other one over on 3rd Street where, and then you want to put some more over here behind. You're going to put industrial parks in between residential people is what I'm trying to say. And the tractor and trailers is going to be mixed in with our cars and trucks. That's my concern.
Okay, the only access to Cherry Lane is off 54 or then somewhere up off.
That's correct. You got to come
Okay.
over by the driving range or come off
Right.
of 54. And it's about Jimmy Carr, but you got residentials mixed in all with this right here also.
Okay. The land across the road, is that still R18? Mr. Page, show it on the map, those the big lots there with three or four houses right in front of this property.
It is, the land across the road is in the North Carolina Commerce Park. This one is in the mixed-use commercial district in the future land use plan.
Okay, directly across the Cherry Lane from this proposed rezoning, there's R18 with it looks like 4 or 5 lots in there altogether before you get to the light industrial zone. And that's backs up to Jimmy Carr and Walmart and all that stuff.
It backs up to Senator Ralph Scott Parkway and Walmart
Okay.
and all that stuff.
Okay. What was your street address, Mr. Isley?
2279 Cherry Lane.
Okay.
And we have property adjoining this tract, which is in farm use, agriculture use. So I've got it in farm use preservation. So that's the kind of a red flag. So we was here with this agriculture, and if they come and have issues with agriculture, I'm in the safe zone because I've already put it in the agriculture department is listed as volunteer farm use.
Our land joins.
See, and my land joins what y'all want to have rezoned part.
Okay, I'm looking at you here on the map.
We have 2 parcels.
Yeah, you're on the backside of it, then, right down by the creek.
That's correct. Now, I got 2 parcels. One would be where I live at on the 2279, then across the road is like 14.9 acres that's adjoining the Eichingers.
Okay. Any member of the board have a question for Mr. Isley? Do you have anything else to say, Mr. Isley?
That should do it. My concern is just the tractors and trailers at the nighttime and maybe the noise and traffic they make. We have some elderly people live in this little neighborhood right here. And, you know, for them having to deal with the traffic is my concern.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else from the audience? Any participants out?
No, sir, that is everyone.
Okay, well then this time we'll close it to public comment. Subject to reopen it if somebody has a question, and we'll discuss them among ourselves. What say ye, board?
If this property were combined with the property that borders the interstate, what's the likelihood that NCDOT would build an off and on ramp right there if it became a distribution point for some large, you know?
I would say slim to none.
Chair Chrisman, do you want me to answer that one?
Yes, please.
Absolutely zero. The federal highway might, but it would require hundreds of millions of dollars. And considering that they have budget shortfalls now, I don't see this coming, even with some sort of $2 trillion infrastructure plan. This was studied a few years ago. And the issue is that the proximity to the exit for Jimmy Carr and Trollingwood Road are too close together. And so you would need to put in a slip lane for that entire distance, including a bridge over Back Creek that was another, you know, couple lanes wide. So you'd end up with something that looked like it belonged in Texas and likely never pay for itself.
So to access this, you'd have to go down 54 and then hang a left on Cherry Lane, go up the hill.
Yeah, that's a tough area for any kind of development.
It's not only a tough, it's highly traveled as it is with all the industrial parks that have opened up in and around the area. Walmart, distribution center, and now UPS coming in. One of my main concerns is the amount of traffic on Cherry Lane as it is. Not that I mind it, but what I worry about is opening up an area off of Cherry Lane, as Mr. Isley has spoken about, at that particular access point near the interstate. They would have to either go back across by the golf center and over to the next intersection to turn back to get onto the interstate, or they have to come back up that hill on Cherry Lane to turn on Jimmy Kerr, then go back out to the interstate. It would be more feasible if they could get off of Bacatosh into that area. But as Nathan was saying, you'd have to be able to bridge across Back Creek. That'd be a tremendous expense. I personally just don't see a good fit for this right there. I really don't. But that's just my opinion.
Well, your opinion counts.
Thank you, sir.
Did anyone else have any comment? Mr. Perry? Mr. Chin, Mr. Bailey?
Yep.
No, sir.
I have mixed emotions here. Want to respect the use of the landowner to be able to do something with his land. But being the rest of the stuff is agricultural, and the land is, the topography is such, the proximity to the creek is such that it's hard to use for residential, hard to use for industrial. I would feel better sometime in the future if he came back with a special use permit rather than a total rezoning and say, I've got this customer that wants to build this and we'd like to build it here. If we could get it zoned light industrial so we could see what's going to go in there. It might be something that would not require an office park, something that wouldn't require heavy vehicles to go in and out all day long. So I have mixed emotions about this. If no one has anything else, we'll entertain a motion.
Sir, I'll make a motion that we deny the request to rezone to light industrial. Due that it does not fit the 2035 comprehensive plan.
We have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have any further discussion? Yeah, there's no further discussion. We've had a proper motion and a second. All those in favor of denial of this appeal, please indicate by saying aye.
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 I'll poll all those opposed to denying this permit, please indicate by saying aye or nay. How's that?
Nay.
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 Oh, wait.
Wait a minute.
How are we?
I have confused everybody, including myself.
Yes,
the motion was to deny this motion. If you're in favor of denying the motion, please indicate by, I will poll you. How's that? If you are in favor of denying the motion, Mr. Perry, are you in favor of denying this motion?
I'm not in favor.
Okay, that would be a nay then. Mr. Bailey,
Denied.
that would be an aye.
Aye.
To deny the motion. Mr. Chen,
Aye.
deny the motion. Mr. Benesh,
Aye.
since you made the motion, and I will vote nay. So the motion carries to deny this permit 3-2. Does that satisfy everybody that voted? Okay, I would like to tell the Ecklingers that we respect your opinion and your desire to move your land. I've been in the same situation you have before, trying to move a piece of land and not being able to do it. We would encourage you to continue to pursue a sale of the land, either to a developer that will, I guess, put in septic tanks and wells, or come back for a special use permit with a specific customer in mind, and say we have a client that wants to zone this land for this use and have a sale in hand, that we could entertain that motion then. Is that a fair enough statement to Mr. Page?
The planning board has the authority to entertain whatever designs they would desire for this,
Okay,
as long as the applicant applies.
okay. Is there no other comment on that business? We'll go to the next item of business. We want to turn this meeting back over to, there's Mr. Moody. Mr. Moody, I'll turn the meeting back over to you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Nathan, will you handle the next item on the agenda and explain what we're to be doing, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Moody. The item before us is the 160D update. It's a comprehensive update to the development ordinance as required by the North Carolina General Assembly. It's been in your packet a couple of times, posted on the website for some time. There were a few corrections that the attorneys recommended. It was to add an S to one word. In one place I had in for a character to put a number in, and I put that number in. There were a few other, I think there were 4 total corrections like that. If I remember correctly, I sent those out last month to the board. But in total, there were a lot of different corrections, which is why the track changes version was the version that was made available to the board members, so that we didn't go through one by one unless you wanted to address them one by one.
Okay. If anyone in attendance would like to speak during this agenda item, please indicate that you would like to do so by using the raise your hand feature in the Zoom, or by phone, press *9, notify the host you wish to speak, and we will recognize you at the appropriate time. If you're having technical difficulties, please contact Preston Jenkins at 336-347-8674. He will provide you with your comments. So Nathan, do we talk about this amongst the board first, or see if anybody's in the audience that wants to speak?
You may do it whichever way you want. You can
Okay.
back and forth,
All right.
whatever works for you.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience with their hand raised to speak on this subject?
Yes, sir. We have one, Patty Allen. Patty, state your name and address. You've been unmuted.
Patty Allen, 265 West Shannon Drive, Graham. I would specifically like to request that the planning board members comment first to see, so for my benefit, to learn how much they've studied the packet before making recommendations to the council.
Okay.
They wanted us to start talking first, meaning me. I'll tell you in a minute. I'm not muted. Until I'm muted, I can't.
Okay. Anybody on the board have anything to discuss at this time? This is, from what I understood from talking to Chair Ward, it'll take several sessions to go through this. So I can start this with Bobby Chin. Do you have anything you would like to talk about?
Well, the point that caught my attention was how the planning board has been taken out of the procedures for approving preliminary subdivisions. Basically it's section 10.339, subparagraph B, bow-legged number 1, where what we used to do has now been delegated to the technical review committee. So the question in my mind is, do we have any role at all when you talk about major subdivisions or those kind of developments that are coming or that are being proposed to the city?
Chair Moody, would you like me to address that one?
Yes, sir, please.
So the School of Government talks about the 3 different types of approvals that can be given by a municipality. The one that we have before us here is a legislative body that meets and makes a legislative decision based on how they believe things apply, using their opinions and guidance from their own personal experiences. There's also a quasi-judicial approval that this body has engaged in from time to time, and that's an evidentiary hearing that has to be approved if somebody meets the standards or denied if somebody doesn't meet the standards. The third type is an administrative approval, and that's, for example, if your studs are 2x4s and they're 16 inches on center, they shall be approved. As you saw tonight, a rezoning comes before the planning board for approval. And in many times we've had rezonings at the same time as a subdivision. But if they met the standards of the subdivision, they had to be approved. There are members of the planning board that have voted against subdivisions that met the underlying standard. In all of those circumstances, it was a minority of the planning board members, and so it didn't matter. But if the planning board denies someone who meets the standards of the subdivision set forth by the city of Graham, in effect, we're telling somebody that they don't have the right to do something that they're given the right to do by the state of North Carolina. And therefore, it's not a legislative decision, it's not a quasi-judicial decision, it's simply an administrative decision. If the regulations that guide subdivisions are not what the planning board would like to see, the planning board should change the regulations for subdivisions, not arbitrarily apply some criteria that they believe makes sense. The single exception to that is those conditional rezonings that we have. When you have a conditional rezoning, as the board is aware, it comes with a site-specific plan. That's a requirement of the approval process. And so if you've got a conditional rezoning, we also will run a subdivision immediately after it. And if the conditional rezoning is approved, the subdivision also must be approved. So you'll see a site-specific plan for anything that's not just a straight rezoning, but straight rezonings will be the straight rezoning and will not also have a subdivision component. Conditional rezonings will be conditional rezonings and not also have a subdivision component. So for practical purposes, from this point of view of the planning board, you will have a few less agenda items, but the discussion will be exactly the same because we hash out all of those discussions with the rezoning, or in this case, the conditional rezoning portion of whatever the applicant put forward. I don't know if you guys remember, but like we had 2 or 3 of these one night, and we approved or denied a rezoning, and then we approved or denied a subdivision, approved or denied a rezoning, and then approved or denied the subdivision. And it was very repetitive, especially when if they denied the rezoning, they had to be denied the subdivision. If they were approved the rezoning, they had to be approved for the subdivision.
Anything else, Mr. Chen?
No.
And I just want to remind everybody again that we're just, the way I understand this, we're just discussing and looking at this, and once everybody doesn't have anything else to bring up this evening, we'll keep plowing through this and to a time that we feel comfortable to bring it on. Do we have a deadline on this, Nathan?
The city council has to adopt it before July 1st. It was advertised for the next city council meeting, but the planning board always has the ability to take at least 2 months on something.
Okay.
Mr. Moody,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to go back to page 6
Okay.
on the underline, the red part on dwelling, any building, structure, manufactured home, or mobile home. And then it lists some places for the definition of dwelling. I would like to have the word permanent placed in that definition of a dwelling. We stated in a place one time that the dwellings consisted of lava tubes and yurts and tents and other non-permanent structures. So would it be appropriate to have for a definition of a dwelling, have it as a permanent structure?
Nathan?
I certainly see where Mr. Chrisman is coming from. However, in this circumstance, we were required to adopt just the language of terminology and citations, chapter 1, section 3, must align with ordinance terminology for building, dwelling unit, bedroom, and sleeping unit must align with state law 2019-111, subsection 1-17. So I just copied and pasted from that in this circumstance.
Okay. Then on page 19, section 10.20, subsection B, talk about terms, vacancies, and removal. The city council had established a board of volunteers, come up with a manual for boards and commissions. And one of the things we talked about was absences and the number of absences you could have in a 12-month period, in a revolving 12-month period. There's nothing in there about that other than excess absences, or repeated absences. But there was no number associated with that, and that was heavily discussed during the discussions, and that was presented to the city council, but I don't know if they ever adopted it or not. So I just wanted to point that out. On page 21, section 10.4,
Sorry,
jurisdiction.
Chair Moody, is it the consensus of the board that we should address that at this point in this document?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. I'll back up then.
Mr. Moody,
Yes, sir.
at what point would you like the public to comment? Miss Allen has her hand raised again.
I think we need to go through the board first and poll everybody, and then we'll come back to her.
Okay, thank you, sir. I was just a little confused.
Okay. Nathan?
Yes, sir.
You want to address what Mr. Chrisman was talking about?
Well, I'm happy to put a reference to it in there. I just wanted to make sure that it was the full board that was in agreement with that.
Okay. Mr. Chrisman, is this something you prepared to make a motion to?
Well, I've got several pages of, I mean, our assignment was to go through and see what changes we thought needed to be made. So that's what I did.
Okay. I would feel comfortable if Chairman Ward was present. Nathan, I need your leadership on this.
Mr. Vice Chairman, can I say something?
Yes, sir.
I think we need to line item as we go along. If we try to put it all in one consensus, we're not going to be able to successfully get to every single issue that, as was proclaimed in the beginning as we started, in that would take several times to get together to be able to address each and every one of them. I say if we had 20, we'd do the top 5 and then, or 10 or whatever, but we need to do each one individually, I believe. Am I right on that, Nathan?
I certainly think that would make it cleaner, because if you know, a majority of the board wants to see the boards and commissions handbook mentioned here, I'm happy to put it in there and then we'll run with that. If a majority doesn't, we shouldn't, but I agree, if we have 10 amendments or 10 proposed amendments, it may get confusing as we're further into the document.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, so would it be appropriate for me to ask, does anybody have an issue with inserting that language in this section?
Nathan.
Chair Moody, if you're good with that, I'm good with that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that, Mr. Christmas.
Okay. On page 20, section 1023, streets and numbering and development, streets and house numbering.
20 what, sir?
2023, or
Thank
excuse me,
you.
1023.
Yeah, okay, okay. That's all right. I'm with you.
I don't ever remember approving street names or where housing numbers start. Is that, I can understand the developer wanting to do street names. Does the city control where the street numbers start, or is that just at the discretion of the developer?
It's actually done through an addressing agreement that was approved by the city council for the purposes of E911 dispatch. So Katie Harper with Alamance County assigns all of our addresses. Ironically, a former chair, Ricky Hall, had that role while he was working for Alamance County for some time.
Okay, I was just curious there.
Yeah, I think that this is one of those that has remained for some time and probably ought to be reevaluated because it's in conflict with a more recent agreement that the city council has adopted.
Okay, thank you. On the next page, section 1040. If anybody has anything that is on a section that I have gone over or didn't include, I would not hesitate to interrupt if you don't mind. The jurisdiction on the agricultural areas, are they identified on the map? Like we just heard Mr. Isley say his was identified as an agricultural area.
So they're identified by their tax code. The individual for our purposes who assigns them as being legal agricultural areas is the Alamance County Tax Office. And if they're in present use value, as Mr. Isley said, then they still have to follow like floodplain regulations and some of the building code, most of the building code.
But their tax purposes are different because we've got some land in forestry and we pay a whole lot less taxes. But if it's taken out of that, then we owe back taxes. Is that correct?
The tax purposes are different, but it's also for example, there's a big wash of folks having parties on agricultural property in Orange County where they have a farm and they built this big, beautiful barn, and then they're having wedding venues and such. And they're saying that's not, you can't zone that out because it's a bona fide farm that also has wedding venues.
You could have Woodstock on a farm too. Okay.
Hopefully there's an interstate exit at that one.
Oh, okay. Section 1044. It talks about the zoning enforcement officer, and then it identifies you as the planning director as being the zone enforcement officer, and it references the ZEO several times, but it listed as the planning director or his designee. That got confusing to me. That we don't have a zoning enforcement officer, do we?
Jenny does some of this work in regards to junk cars and following up with the paperwork for zoning violations.
Okay, so that's your designee, or is she identified as the ZEO?
I think I'm the legal ZEO, and then she's my designee, but I could clarify that if you'd like. I'm not sure that it's in either one of our job descriptions formally.
Because it's mentioned on several pages as the ZEO or its representative, and this section also talks about the authority to enforcement, and so Jenny has that as well.
She has the right to have somebody go and remove junk. She has the right to have somebody go and cut their grass. There's a few other rights that she has, but they're very limited.
Okay. On page 25, section 1053, reduction of lot and of yard and lot areas. No yard or.
Excuse me, Mr. Crispin. What section was that?
1053, 10.53. I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
No yard or existing or lot existing at the time of this passage of this article shall be reduced in size or area below the minimum requirements set forth herein. Yards and lots created after this effective date, yada yada. If there's an empty lot between me and my neighbor, we can't split that lot to increase the size of our respective lots in that lot.
So that if you had 3 lots and it became 2 lots, you could do that as a recombination. That's an exemption under the subdivision ordinance. This one is for a lot or a yard created after the date of the ordinance.
In other words, you're increasing your size of your lot and the adjoining lot by
half a lot.
Well, combining, yes. But
okay, so it doesn't have to be the
one lot by itself can't be reduced in size.
Okay, but if the lot can be split like an R18 to an R9 or something, there's no problem with that. Is that correct?
Yeah, or if you had 70,000 square feet in an R7, you may be able to do 10 lots if it laid out right. But if you had 10,000 square feet, you can't make 2 R7s from 10,000 square feet.
Okay, I take that back. I saw where that's answered in section 10.68.
Right, that's already covered, right?
Yeah, I saw that in my notes. Sorry about that. I'm going to go all the way to 10.83. That's on page 29.
Okay.
Section E.
Right.
Pursuant to GS, when the city council adopts a rezoning that is not consistent with the future land use map, that future land use map must be updated and is deemed amended upon approval of the rezoning. Nowhere up until then, or especially the definitions, is there a definition of the land use map or the comprehensive plan? Should there not be a definition in there about that?
Do you want to add that to the definition section way earlier?
Yes, because nowhere does it mention a comprehensive plan, a land use plan in the definitions of this section.
You said comprehensive land plan, you mean future land use map?
Yeah.
And then,
Every motion has to be in accordance with the 2035 comprehensive plan. And here it mentions with the future land use map. And the future land use map must be updated and deemed amended. Is the map the same as the plan? And the plan is the same as, should be correspondent with the map. Is that
plan,
am off base?
the plan includes the map,
I would think it would be all inclusive, yes.
but I'm not sure that the plan includes the map, but the map doesn't include the plan.
Does that make sense, Eric?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the plan includes the map,
Yes.
but shouldn't the considerations on the map be in accordance with the plan?
They should.
I certainly agree with that, but
But it's
Okay,
from
well,
the
I
future
just wondered
land
if-
use map that the,
but the map is already in the plan, so therefore the map has to be included with the plan. So it's kind of being redundant. I understand what your basis of that statement, that you don't want to have a map that doesn't mention that it's part of the plan. I think that's what I'm reading, right?
Okay.
I think the
but my-
comprehensive plan reflects the future land use map.
Right. You're right, Bobby.
We don't create the map from the plan. The comprehensive plan is created from the future land use map. Isn't that right?
No,
No.
the
Excuse me, no.
the future
No.
land use plan has stuff like water reclamation in it. It's got stuff like making the schools better, that sort of thing. The future land use map is an outcome of the comprehensive plan.
And the comprehensive plan should include as interpreted by the majority. Because we've used the comprehensive plan to approve something and to deny the same motion, the same is in accordance with this section, or it's not in accordance with that section. So that's an interpretation by the majority.
I'm confused.
I think the request is to add a definition of future land use map and comprehensive plan in the definition section.
Correct.
That was my original, yes.
Correct.
So if you looked up the word map, it would give you that definition.
Okay.
Okay. I don't have another change until section or division 4 or another. And I don't know where division 4 starts here.
What page is that?
I'm looking.
Division 4 starts on page 34.
Page 34. Talks about the Board of Adjustment. At one time, Chair Ward had talked about the need, since that's a quasi judicial board, having an attorney present when we make decisions, realizing it can't be the city attorney because the city would represent the city if there's a adjudication against whatever the Board of Adjustments side decides on. Should there be verbiage there requiring an attorney's consultations when the Board of Adjustments makes decisions? There's nothing in that section about an attorney being present.
You want to add something here.
Well, that would require obviously approval by the city council because they'd have to designate funds for it. Because in the past, the Board of Adjustment has been in legal troubles on decisions made because an attorney wasn't present to guide us, and that's not your responsibility to say we're not, even though you assume that position, to guide us legally.
Are you saying we basically what I think you're saying is we need a separate attorney from the city attorney? But of course, that would have to be funded by the city.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I got you.
Because if there was a legal argument, the city attorney would have to defend the city.
Yes.
Couldn't defend us.
Right. I see what you're saying, sir.
And that's obviously a city council decision. So.
Yeah, but that's a pretty profound statement there too.
Well, Chair Ward brought that up earlier.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Thank you for bringing it up again, because that really needs to be clarified, because the Board of Adjustments needs that little crutch, if you will, to make sure that it's not putting the city in a liable state and then having to represent itself with its own attorney. That's not going to work too well.
Okay. Yeah.
Nathan, you got any clarification on how to proceed with that?
I can add something in here about requiring an attorney to be present to make a quasi judicial decision.
Other than the city attorney?
It's all up to the city council what they want to do.
I understand that, sir.
I had no issues with the next section about the zoning use, land use problems. I had nothing there. That's all pretty self-explanatory, and it's been consistent with what we've done, I guess, forever. And there's the lawyer recommended no changes other than page numbers and dates. And I think that goes all the way to, it goes down 100 pages or so.
So are you good at where you're at so far?
So far, I'm going to get down here to section. I got a note down here for 339. No, I don't have any issues until page 121 or through 121.
Do you want to stop there?
Well, the rest of the stuff is not a whole lot. Just a couple of definition changes. I've got 4 more things. That's all.
Not rushing you. I'm, just asking.
If we could go skip down to page 196. I told you I went through this thing.
We all have, sir.
Let me get back to page 196 here.
What section, Eric?
On the definitions. There's not a definition for built upon area the definition of built upon area mentions the stormwater runoff. Let's see, where is it?
Right there at the bottom.
Stormwater BMP
Runoff.
design manual.
Repeat that, please.
Of the stormwater runoff manual. It mentions the BMP design manual,
Yes.
but there's no definition for BMP. It says best management practice, but should there be a definition for BMP? It's because there's one for built upon area, but there's not a definition for best practice manual. Best practice design manual.
Nathan?
All right, good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
do you feel like that definition needs to be added, sir?
Yes, sir. Nathan's drafting something up now to read.
Okay, so I didn't hear anything. It kind of went blank up here.
Nathan, can you read that?
Sorry about that, Mike. I was trying to focus on my spelling.
No problem. It just, I'm in and out up here. I hear some of it and I don't hear some of it.
So we've added under Stormwater BMP Design Manual, a BMP in parentheses best management practice, or SCM parentheses stormwater control measure shall be a device approved by the NCDEQ Stormwater Design Manual to control stormwater in a manner that complies with state regulations. Do I need to spell out DEQ?
I would
Sure.
say yes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay.
And on the page 198, the strike throughs, I got lost there.
So I believe the phasing moved elsewhere. Let me see. There's a yeah, it's
That was a legal requirement to strike through those three paragraphs. Or those, yeah.
there. All this was added. And so the phasing was taken out of there and then combined in this one place
On
under
page.
vested rights and permit choice, page
Okay.
104.
Okay,
And you see that all the red is that new language that we're required to add.
okay. Page 205.
Yes, sir.
There we have a definition for BMP. We talk about things and then we don't talk about them. They come again later. So that was there.
That may be a result of regulations written by engineers.
Okay. On page 211. Let's see. On nuisances, enforcement violations. Let me see. 10.518. It mentions the owner of each BMP. 10.518 and 10.519. It mentions structural BMP. I got confused there.
So, yeah, I guess there should be a definition for structural and non-structural BMP there.
Yeah.
Let me do this. Let me go back up to the beginning for the primary definition section. I think it's 10.31 and add those in.
Okay.
10.16. So that would be like a structural BMP would be like the sand trap that looks like the Olympic swimming pool just on South Main Street in front of Rivermill Academy.
Right.
And then a non-structural BMP would be like you can have the ditches that run on a lot of the sides of ribbon paved roads can function as BMPs. They're much less effective than the sand trap, but they still function.
Okay. And then on page 214, 215, definitions again, section 10.554. It's got definition for BMP, first one. Should there be something in there on the order of activities detrimental to flood erosion pollution control?
Can you clarify detrimental erosion for me?
Yeah.
In your words, somebody builds a structure to move water in the wrong area.
The detrimental erosion would be like if you were to move water in such a way that it removed your next door neighbor's land so that their house was no longer supported in an extreme example.
Yeah, that's what I felt like. Like if I built a rock wall somewhere for aesthetics, and then it turns out to be water running over into my neighbor's house, taking out his foundation, that type of thing.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Okay. I'm good now till appendix C.
Mr. Crispin, was there something you wanted to add to this definition? I'm sorry.
No, I'm fine there. I was curious. Let me see what page this is on. I think it's 250. Let me get down to it here. I've got my notes here to the greatest extent possible. Who determines that? Is that a TRC question?
Yeah, so that would be something like, there's some in here that say that the horizontal curve of a reasonably long radius shall be 10 degrees, something like that.
Yes.
That was violated by one of our recent streets because it went under a Duke power line easement, and Duke told them, you can't cross our easement like that. And so they needed to have a larger curve, a larger sweep in the road than what was called for here.
So should there be language in there on concerning greatest extent possible as determined by, or due to pre-existing conditions or something to that extent? Is that fair enough?
Well, I don't know that you could actually define it that way, because you're not going to know who that particular person or what that particular condition may be.
If you're, we have a caller on, so I'll read it out for them just in case, because they can't see the screen. Appendix C, street standards. These standards should be applied to the greatest extent possible as determined by the city's engineer with consultation from the technical review committee to all new street construction or reconstruction.
I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we added as determined by the city's engineer with consultation with the TRC, the technical review committee.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I've got.
Okay,
You did good.
great. Nate, do you have anything this time?
This
Nate
time,
Perry.
no, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Benash?
No, sir, I do not.
All right, Mr. Bailey?
No, sir.
Okay. Jeff, can we hear from Miss Allen now?
Miss Allen, you've been unmuted. Go ahead.
All right, hold on, let me get to my primary thing I wanted to discuss is in section 10.339. It is procedures for major subdivisions. Actually, item A, we talked about the conditional rezoning, and if someone brings a subdivision and rezoning, and you have to do them both, state law, all that jazz. But since most of the city of Graham proper has been developed at this point, and I use the word most, not all, and I'm not talking about redevelopment, I'm talking about raw land. We're looking primarily, and what primarily has been brought to the planning board and therefore city council for months and months and months now is in the ETJ.
Yes.
And clearly based on the pattern in the year and 4 or 5 months I've been active in following the processes, the developers and or landowners have caught on and said, okay, I'll do a conditional rezoning, or okay, I'll do it this way, ask for the rezoning and come in with the subdivision plan, so they're required by state law to do it. That's all state law. We can't change that or affect that. But what I am curious about is in subsection A, where it talks about pre-application conferences. And it says that applicants are encouraged to schedule a pre-application conference with the planner. So it's not a requirement, which is fine, I guess. It's kind of like premarital counseling, I suppose. And to discuss the procedure standards and regulations required for approval. I'm curious first, how often does that actually happen? How often does a landowner or a potential developer or contractor come in and say, or ask Nathan at this point in time, because you're our planner, Nathan, can I have a pre-application conference? How often does that generally happen?
So I think that's mentioned a few times in here, not just for the major subdivisions, but also for some of the larger site plan things.
Right, but I mean, how many times have you personally been asked? Is it frequent? Is it infrequent? Is it 50% of the time? Is it 20%? I'm just a gauge, because that affects what I'm curious about in this piece. And it's not a pick on you, Nathan, I promise. But I think it's key to this development in the ETJ.
I apologize for interrupting you, Miss Allen. Are you ready for me to answer now?
Yes, sir, and I apologize as well for interrupting.
No worries. I just wanted to make sure we heard what you had. It depends on how you define pre-application conference, because not every single, 95% of people, before they will make an offer on a property, will call me and say, is there water and sewer available here? Is there sufficient water and sewer available here? If not, how close is it? Is it reasonable to bring it to this location? Having said that, I would say that I've probably only sat down and looked at plans 3 times in my 6 years that I've been here for a pre-application conference.
And that would be very reasonable. I mean, as a property owner, if I were to purchase another piece of property, I would, as a part of my due diligence during my, contractual period, I would absolutely ask all those questions. This subsection, however, clearly from my reading sounds more formal, which you mentioned you've only done that about 3 times in 6 years, so it's rare. So the follow-up question to that is whether people come to you informally, or whether people people's not the right word, whether a potential developer, buyer, contractor comes to you asking about the basics of the infrastructure and the feasibility of pulling the infrastructure in, et cetera, as a part of just, hey, can you help me? Do you answer those questions with yeses and nos, or words? And by you, I don't mean just you, but obviously you, because you're who our planner is right now. Is the planner guided and directed to answer those questions factually? Not that you would lie, that's not what I'm suggesting. Well, let me follow that up by saying, in relation to my comment last month, as a citizen in the ETJ, but as a resident, it often feels that the planning board is working in the interest of developers rather than the interest of the specific developer in a specific project, rather than the interest of the citizens in general. And I would want to ensure that, whether informally or formally, in these this pre-application process that, as you have always done with me, Mr. Page, always, the answers are always yes, no, you may do this, rather than, well, if you brought it to me as a conditional rezoning, they can't deny it. Or if you brought it to me as a major subdivision at the same time as the rezoning, they can't deny it. That's state law. I don't, and let me also say
Miss Allen,
that, yes, sir,
may I ask a clarifying question here?
absolutely.
I might have been misunderstood previously. If you have land that is zoned R18 and you bring forth an R18 subdivision, it must legally be approved. You have the right,
Absolutely.
if your land is zoned R18, to do an R18. If you come with conditional rezoning and say, just pretend that your lots are currently R18 and somebody comes with a conditional rezoning with 12,000 square foot lots. If that conditional rezoning is denied, that subdivision must be denied. And so there's no like backdoor thing where your hands are tied if somebody applies for a certain rezoning.
No, I don't feel that way.
Okay,
However,
I wasn't following your question.
The question is ultimately how much guidance are people who come in, and there's a piece of this, and I think one of my little sticky notes has fallen off because I can't get to it. But when it discusses conditional rezoning, it's the ordinances clearly say that it exists, and I'm obviously spitballing because, again, I think one of my sticky notes has fallen off, that some conditional rezoning exists because some tracts of land may have topographical or whatever features that make it unreasonable to develop under the set zoning stuff. Now that we're in the ETJ, now that we're in lands that are likely all of that, I'm curious as to how much direction can a planner, specifically in these pre-application conferences, how much specific information can a planner give them to make it, the planner shouldn't sway the developer, the contractor, the landowner either way. They shouldn't sway them against trying to develop this lot, and they shouldn't sway them in favor of it and telling them how to do that. Sorry, boyfriend bringing, not boyfriend, special friend bringing a daughter home. Dogs don't like them. So how much, when I read this one section, it reads to me as if this kind of holds all the basis for the majority of what the planning board is dealing with at this point. Because there's been a clear, again, in just the 15, 17 months I've been doing this, a clear transition in the way people are bringing stuff to the board. Most of the time, there hadn't been anything the board could really do other than approve or deny. And so I'm wondering, I don't want another definition in here. I think there are ample definitions as there are. I don't want another requirement because asking government to fix government doesn't work. And perhaps the answer to this is not in the development ordinance. But I feel like it needs to be crystal clear, just as council members can't have certain conversations before voting on something, that whoever the planner is not assisting anyone in favor or against swaying them in any way. And I feel like it's, when I read through this document, when I watch the videos on UNC's site, it's like a railroad. It's like there's a big engine that says, unless you buy up every piece of property that's around your piece of property so that you can control it, you have no control what's happening next to you, which is fair, right? I mean, that's fair. I mean, I don't want to step on another property owner's rights any more than I want mine stepped on.
Okay. Nathan, was there anything we need to address there?
What can be done in that section? There's no recommendation from the school government on that.
Chair Moody, that one's not one of the ones that is being changed by 160D. I do agree with some of the sentiments that Ms. Allen is sharing. North Carolina is a very developer-friendly state. It's not like, for example, California, where you have to get approvals from everybody before you can do anything. It's much closer to Texas. And as you're aware, the planning board is very limited in what they can do. I'm not sure what procedures for major subdivisions has to do with whether or not an individual applies for a rezoning or not, or somebody decides to put their land on the market. I certainly am not knocking on doors asking people to sell their land for new housing divisions.
Correct.
And I would expect if I was a developer or a landowner, that I could go to the planning department and ask what my options were and expect a straightforward answer, not say, well, that's up to you to find out. That I think Mr. Page's job is to inform a landowner or developer what the options are if he's asked.
There's a difference between sharing what the options are, which absolutely the planner should do. And my experience with our planner is that he absolutely does. But there's a difference between showing what the options are and saying, hey, but if you go about it this way, there's less the planning board can do about it, which I am not accusing anybody of. I am simply saying that as we look at all the development in the ETJ, I shouldn't have to hire legal counsel to defend my rights and my property while everything's happening around me, and they're the ones with the bigger pocketbooks, generally speaking. And I feel like that in this whole thing, that one subsection, which you're right, does not change according to 160D, but quite frankly, we've discussed a lot that isn't affected by 160D in this tonight. But what this does, what 160D did do for y'all and for me is make us look at the whole thing. So we're all more aware of what we're bound to and able to do. I respectfully request that the planning board think on that.
Okay.
I'll probably be able, with your help tonight and your feedback tonight, I'll be able to word it more succinctly next month for city council if it's addressed at that time.
Mr. Chrisman, do you have something?
Yeah, if I could ask a question that might help us all. Mr. Page, if you could address for us why the activity in that southern part of the county in that particular corridor seems to be having so much development.
I know though, I'm
available.
aware of that.
Okay.
I know why that is. I know it has a whole thing. Southern Loop came off, all that. I got all those pieces.
Okay.
It's not just my part of the county though. It's not just my part of the county. And it's just like this place is hot to live in now. That place is going to be hot to live in tomorrow. Next 3 years from now, it's going to be somewhere else.
Sure.
It's not about my space.
Okay.
It's about, there's a lot of power in words. There's a lot of power in words.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Allen, for giving us some food for thought. Do you have anything else?
Everything else was actually touched on. I have a few other things, but they're frankly insignificant, and I don't see that they would be to the benefit or to the detriment of
Okay,
either side of the equations.
okay. Is there anyone else in the public that has anything to say on this item? If not, can we?
I'm
For
sorry,
the
I
fund
was,
agenda items.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Say that one more time.
I was making sure there was no one else that wanted to speak on this item in the
No,
public.
sir. No, sir. It's just
Okay.
Miss Allen.
All right, I think we've completed that. If we could go just to the board. I feel like we went over some things tonight, but I would like to move this to April meeting, providing you guys are in agreement with this. Just so we can continue to chew on this and make sure we've covered all of our bases.
Well, we've got 2 months before it goes before the city council, which would be in May or June. They've got to approve it by July.
July.
We've got 2 months to go over it.
Yes, sir. So if we could get it next month.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if we get something that's drafted by the next meeting, as you say, to chew on, and then give us one more month to iron out any wrinkles that we have, and then present it to city council. It's a good approach.
Nathan, can we do that, please?
If I'm understanding you right, you want to table it for April, table it for this meeting so that you guys make a recommendation in April, which will give the city council May to discuss, chew on, and then June to take action on it, because it has to be effective prior to their July meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Does that give the city council enough time?
Say that again, Mr. Chrisman.
Does that give the city council? I mean, we've had it for months and months and months, and I think we need to pass it on next month for sure.
Well, Mr. Chrisman, I have no problem with it at all. I think what Mr. Moody, our vice chairman, is trying to do is include Mr. Ward in our final decision making.
Sure.
If I'm wrong,
That's correct, but I'll go with whatever you guys decide as a majority, but I feel like we give it at least till Chairman Ward can be involved.
Fair enough.
I'm all in favor of taking final action on it next month.
I agree.
I'll make a motion that we table this till next month. We make a final action on it and either approve it or disapprove it and send it to the city council. That's in the form of a motion.
Second.
Do I need to poll that, Nathan?
I think it's a formal motion for tabling with public notice, so I think that's a good idea.
Be a good idea. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I'll poll Mr. Benesh.
Aye.
Mr. Bailey,
Aye.
Mr. Chrisman,
Aye.
Mr. Perry,
Aye.
Mr. Penn,
Aye.
and I am aye. Okay. At this time, are there any public comment on any non-agenda items? If there are any members of the public who wish to speak on an item that is not on the agenda tonight, please raise your hand now.
No one as of right now, Mr. Moody.
Okay. All right, then I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have one comment, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Eric, you did a good job tonight, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Benesh.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mr. Page.
Thank you.
Aye. We're gonna vote on it, right?
Yeah, we got to vote on it.
We got to vote on it.
Aye.
All in favor?